It was raining the night Daniel decided he didn't want to live anymore. Not because he hated life, but because life had slowly stopped loving him back. The city lights outside his apartment window looked beautiful to everyone else. But to him, they felt cold, distant, like millions of people were alive, yet nobody could see him drowning. Daniel was only 24. He worked long hours in a grocery store in Chicago. Every morning, he smiled at strangers. "Have a good day. God bless you. Take care." But the truth? Nobody ever asked if he was okay. His father had passed away 2 years earlier. His mother was fighting illness. Bills were piling up. Friends disappeared. And the girl he thought would stay forever left with only 4 words. "I can't do this." That night, Daniel sat alone on the kitchen floor. The room was dark except for a tiny lamp flickering near the sink. Rain hit the windows hard. Thunder shook the apartment. And for the first time in his life, he whispered, "Jesus, where are you?" Silence. No miracle. No voice from heaven. No sudden peace. Just silence. Daniel laughed bitterly. "Maybe you left too." He reached for an old box near the table. Inside were memories he hadn't touched in years. Photos, birthday cards, his father's old Bible. The Bible looked worn out. Dust covered the edges. A small cross was engraved on the front. Daniel almost threw it aside. But then, something fell out. A folded letter. His hands froze. The paper was yellow and old. On the front were words written in shaky handwriting. To Daniel, "Open this when life becomes too heavy." It was his father's handwriting. Daniel's heart started beating fast. His father had died suddenly from a heart attack. He never got to say goodbye properly. With trembling fingers, Daniel opened the letter. Inside it said, "Son, if you're reading this, then life has hurt you badly. And maybe you think God forgot you. But listen carefully. The enemy wants you to believe you are alone, that your pain has no purpose, that nobody sees your tears. But Jesus sees every silent cry you hide from the world. I know because there were nights I almost gave up too. There was a night years ago, before you were born, when I sat in my truck crying so hard I could barely breathe. I asked Jesus why life was so painful. And do you know what happened? Nothing. At least not immediately. But the next morning, God sent help through people I never expected. And slowly I realized, Jesus may feel silent, but he is never absent. Son, if someday darkness surrounds you, promise me one thing. Don't run away from God. Run to him. Even angry prayers reach heaven. And remember this, the same Jesus who carried the cross is carrying you now." Daniel stopped reading. Tears rolled down his face. For years he thought his father was strong all the time. He never knew he had also fought darkness. Daniel hugged the letter tightly against his chest and cried harder than ever before. Not soft tears, the kind that break something open inside your soul. Outside, thunder roared again. Then suddenly, the apartment lights went out. Everything became black. Daniel wiped his tears. "Perfect," he whispered. He searched for candles in the kitchen drawer. But while looking, he noticed something strange. A faint light outside his apartment door. At first he ignored it. Then, knock, knock, knock. Daniel frowned. Who visits at midnight during a storm? He slowly opened the door. An elderly woman stood there completely soaked from the rain. Her gray hair clung to her face. She looked exhausted. "Sorry to bother you," she said softly. "The power is out downstairs too, and I got scared being alone." Daniel recognized her immediately. Mrs. Harper, the quiet woman from apartment 3B. He barely spoke to her before. Daniel let her inside. She sat carefully on the couch while he lit candles. The warm light filled the room. For a few moments, neither spoke. Then Mrs. Harper noticed the Bible and the letter. "You believe in Jesus?" she asked gently. Daniel hesitated. "I used to." She nodded slowly. "Asking questions?" Daniel gave a painful smile. "You could say that." Mrs. Harper looked at him carefully. Then she said words that shocked him. "You were crying before I knocked, weren't you?" Daniel looked away silently. She continued softly. "I know that kind of crying." There was something in her voice, something deeply broken yet peaceful. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a tiny
And do you know what
photograph.
happened?
It
Daniel
showed a
shook his
young
head.
soldier
I felt
smiling
nothing.
beside her.
She laughed
"My
softly.
son," she
But the
whispered.
next morning,
"He
I
died in
found peace
Afghanistan."
slowly entering my
Daniel's
heart.
chest tightened.
Not because my
"I
pain
prayed for
disappeared,
years that
but
Jesus
because
would
Jesus
save him,
stayed with me
but
in
he
the
didn't."
pain. Daniel
Silence filled
stared
the
at her
room.
silently.
Then she
It felt
smiled through
strange,
tears.
almost
For a
impossible.
long time,
How could someone
I hated
suffer that
God for
much
that.
and still believe?
Daniel looked up.
Mrs. Harper
Nobody at
pointed at the
church
cross
ever admitted
engraved on the
things like
Bible.
that.
People
But she
think the cross
continued.
means God
One
takes
night I
suffering
screamed
away.
at Jesus.
But first,
I told him he
proves he
abandoned me.
understands suffering.
She looked
Those words
directly
hit
into
Daniel
Daniel's
deeply,
eyes.
because for the first time, he realized Jesus wasn't distant from pain. He lived through it. Rejected, mocked, abandoned, beaten, crucified. Jesus understood human heartbreak more than anyone. Rain continued pouring outside. Mrs. Harper suddenly asked, "Would you pray with me?" Daniel hesitated again. "I don't know how anymore." "That's okay," she smiled. "Just speak honestly." The candlelight flickered softly. Daniel closed his eyes slowly. At first nothing came out. Then finally, "Jesus, if you're still there, I'm tired." His voice cracked. "I'm tired of pretending, tired of smiling, tired of feeling invisible." Tears streamed down his face again. And for the first time in years, he stopped hiding from God. "I don't even know if you hear me, but please don't leave me alone tonight." Silence. But this time, the silence felt different. Not empty. Still. Gentle. Safe. Mrs. Harper quietly whispered, "Amen." Hours passed. They talked until almost sunrise. About grief, fear, faith, loneliness. And slowly Daniel realized something powerful. Sometimes Jesus saves people through people. When morning sunlight finally entered the apartment, the storm had ended. Mrs. Harper stood near the door preparing to leave. Before walking out, she handed Daniel something small, a tiny silver cross necklace. "My son wore this every day," she said. "I think you need it more now." Daniel's eyes filled with tears again. "I can't take this." "Yes, you can," she smiled. "Because surviving pain should never be done alone." After she left, Daniel stood silently near the window. The same city lights were still there. The same bills. The same problems. The same grief. Nothing around him had changed overnight. But something inside him had. For the first time in a long time. He felt hope. Not loud hope. Not perfect faith. Just enough light to survive another day. Weeks passed. Daniel slowly started rebuilding his life. He visited church again. Started helping neighbors. Spent more time with his mother. Smiled genuinely for the first time in years. But the biggest change? He began noticing hurting people everywhere. The cashier hiding anxiety behind fake smiles. The lonely old man eating alone. The exhausted nurse buying coffee at midnight. And every time, Daniel remembered that stormy night. Because he finally understood. Sometimes people aren't asking for miracles. Sometimes they just need someone to remind them that Jesus still sees them. One evening months later, Daniel found another note inside his father's Bible. Just one sentence. "Son, when you survive darkness, become light for someone else." Daniel cried again. But this time, not because he was broken, because he finally understood why Jesus never abandoned him. He was being prepared to save someone else someday. And maybe tonight, that someone is you. If your heart feels heavy, if nobody understands your pain, if you feel forgotten, please remember this. Jesus is closest to people who feel completely alone. And sometimes, the miracle is simply surviving one more night. Because your story is not over yet.